where do you belong? Because we as Christians kind of belong in two places. We belong wholly and set apart for God. We have this eternal home that we are awaiting. And yet at the same time, we are called to live in the here and now, to be people who are involved in our culture and involved in the people around us. So which is it? The answer is both. This is a 5-minute sermon. In the opening pages of 1 Peter, Peter addresses his audience, people living in what would be now modern-day Turkey, in a very interesting way. He calls them exiles, or strangers, sojourners. The word here, let me read it. He says, "To those who are elect exiles of the dispersion in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia, according to the foreknowledge of God and the Father, in the sanctification of the Spirit, for obedience to Jesus Christ and for the sprinkling with His blood, may grace and peace be multiplied to you." Seeing all three members of the Trinity there makes sense. They're called by the Father, they're being sanctified in the Spirit, and they have forgiveness and want to walk in obedience to Jesus Christ. But right at the beginning, it calls them these exiles. That word, parapidemos, in the original language that the Bible was written in, means someone who is temporarily residing in a place. And so what Peter is saying to his people is to live like you're in exile, like your home is somewhere else, but you are residing in a place, and that God will use that place in which you are living to glorify Him, to spread the gospel, to grow your faith. And so we as Christians have to watch how we are interacting with the world around us. On one hand, we don't want to try to dominate the culture and go to war with our culture around us, because then we're not really sharing the gospel, even though we are trying to maintain our holiness and interact with the unbelieving world around us. Domination's not going to do it. So sometimes we try to isolate, we try to remove ourselves from the culture and to kind of protect ourselves in our set apartness and our hope for eternity. But then we're called also to interact with the world and share the gospel. We can't possibly do that if we're totally in isolation. Sometimes we try to go with something called capitulation, meaning we're kind of giving up what we believe to get along better in the culture that we are in. And we're not to do that either, because then we lose our holiness, we lose our eternal hope, even if we're able to interact with our surrounding neighbors a little easier. And so what we're called to is to live like an exile, which is this third way, balancing kind of the two of those, that affirming who we are in Christ, called by the Father, being changed by the Spirit, in obedience to the Son, who brought us salvation through His blood. And yet at the same time being fully active and reaching out to the community around us. We all have to ask that question: what does it look like for us to actually do this? What does it look like to be a person who is reaching out to your community while still being someone who is set apart for God? And the answer is to look for Jesus. Jesus, who never sinned, but how did He act when He was on this world? He treated people with mercy and grace. He met people where they are, not expecting perfection with them, but sharing the hope in whatever place they were with. He ate and drank and hung out and partied with all sorts of people from all different backgrounds, all in various phases of their life, all who the religious leaders at the time would have called sinners and shunned. But Jesus brought those people in. And so that's the way we are to live as well. Living, knowing who we are in God, but at the same time reaching out to those people around us, showing them love, compassion, and grace, so that when we share the gospel with them, they see where we are coming from. They're getting a picture of who this God is and how He would love, even in the way we are treating them. And so we end up living like exiles, fully for today, knowing that our home is ultimately somewhere else, but that we could still have the impact on the world around us. I'm Shane. That's a 5-minute sermon.